Hello friends, this is Nishant Gautam, Associate Professor from the Department of Pharmacology, Lauren Institute of Pharmacy. Friends, after the successful discussion of this chapter, tissue level of organization in its previous three parts, today we will continue its fourth part for more detailed description to get the advanced knowledge about the tissues. So let us start the topic. In this topic today we will continue the tissue with a new subheading, that is the kind of tissue, that is the connective tissues. So let us start. The another kind of the tissues is the connective tissues. Actually, these connective tissues are the second of the four basic type of the tissues. These connective tissues is the most diverse and abundant type of the tissues. There are the four main classes of connective tissues and many subclasses. The first one is the connective tissue proper. Familiar example of which are fat tissue and fibrous tissue of the ligament. The second one is the cartilage, third is the bone, and fourth one is the blood, that is the largest fluid connective tissue. Then the functions subserved by the connective tissue, it functions the binding of organs together, it provides the support and protection. Also, the connective tissue fills the spaces and produce blood cells. And in addition to this, the connective tissue stores the fats. So, before to study in detail about the connective tissues, let us go through some important points of the connective tissues. The connective tissues is the most abundant tissues in the body. The extracellular material of the connective tissue, that is a matrix, makes up the bulk of the tissues. Then the matrix is composed of fibers and ground substances in case of these connective tissues. And the connective tissue cells usually can divide. So these are the main basic features of the connective tissues in short. Later we will discuss in detail about these features of connective tissues. Thus, in short, the connective tissues are having relatively few cells with lots of extracellular matrix. In other words, we can say the cells of connective tissues are separated from one another by a large amount of extracellular material called as the extracellular matrix. That means the wall. Then the connective tissues are differs markedly from epithelial tissues whose cells crowd closely together. Then, as we already discussed the embryonic origin of connective tissue, they all originate from the embryonic tissue called as the mesenchyme. So, as we know, the connective tissues are composed of lots of extracellular matrix. This matrix is actually composed of mainly two. The first is the ground substances and the second is the fibers. The extracellular matrix is produced by the cells of the connective tissues. It is composed of some type of the ground substances embedded with the protein fibers. So let us discuss both the compositions of matrix one by one. Number one, The ground substance varies for each class of the connective tissue. In case of the many connective tissues, the ground substance is a soft gel-like substance that holds the tissue fluid. In case of the bone, the ground substance is hard, that is calcified by inorganic calcium salt. Then the second is the fibrous portion of matrix. It provides support for the connective tissues. Actually, there are the three types of protein fibers are found in the connective tissues, like the collagen fibers, reticular fibers, and the elastic fibers. Further, the type, density, and distribution of the fibers are distinctive for each type of connective tissues. And in addition to this, the differences among the physical properties and functions of each type of connective tissue are due to differences in the composition of this extracellular matrix which we discussed here. Then, in continuation to features of connective tissues, let us discuss about the structural elements of connective tissues. The connective tissues are composed of cells and significant amount of extracellular matrix. Then the connective tissues differ in their physical properties because of differences in the types of cells and the composition of the extracellular matrix. However, they all share similar structural elements. There are the main three structural elements of connective tissues. They are the cells, fibers, and the ground substances. These three structural elements are there in the connective tissues. So let us discuss these three structural elements one by one. So start with the first element of connective tissue, that is the cell. The following types of cells are found in the connective tissue. They are the fat cells, mast cells, white blood cells, and the macrophages. So, one of the structural element, that is the cell. Let's know about the functions of these cells one by one with the help of these 3D diagrams. The first one is the fibroblasts. These fibroblasts secrete protein into the matrix, usually collagen, which is a fibrous protein resulting in fibers. The second one is the macrophage. The macrophages originate as white blood cells. They can move and phagocytize the foreign particles. Then the third one is the mast cell. These mast cells or basophils release heparin, which prevents blood clotting, and histamine, which aids the inflammatory responses. Then the second structural element of connective tissue is the fibers. Mainly there are the three types of the fibers present in the connective tissues. The first one is the collagen fibers. Collagen fibers are the strongest and most abundant type of the fiber in connective tissues. Collagen fibers resist tension, means pulling forces, and contribute strength to a connective tissue. Then the second type of the fibers present in connective tissue is the reticular fibers. Reticular fibers are bundles of a special type of a collagen fibrin. These short fibers having a cluster into a mesh-like network. Reticulum means network that covers and supports the structures boarding the connective tissues. Then the third type of the fibers present in connective tissue is the elastic fiber. This elastin which allows them to function like a rubber bands. Then the third structural element of connective tissue is the ground substances. Actually, the molecules that compose the ground substance are produced and secreted by the primary cell type of the connective tissues like fibroblast, chondroblast or osteoblast. And in addition to this, the ground substance in most connective tissue is a gel-like material that consists of a large sugar and sugar protein molecules like proteoglycans and glyoxaminoglycan. These molecules soak up a fluid like a sponge. Now, let us summarize about the three structural elements of connective tissue. They are the cell, fibers and ground substance. With the help of this prototype diagram of areolar connective tissue, we can easily understand these three elements. Let us focus on this diagram with which we can easily understand the basics of structural elements of the connective tissue. Let us focus. This one is the macrophage. This is the fibroblast, then the lymphocyte, then the fat cells and the mast cell, and then this one is the white blood cells. And if you will talk about the extracellular matrix, this one is the ground substance. And if you do talk about the fibers, all these three fibers we already discussed: collagen fiber, elastic fibers and the reticular fibers. So this is the structural composition of the connective tissue. Now let us discuss about the different types of the connective tissues and their subtypes. With the help of this table, we can easily understand the comparison of all the classes of the connective tissues and their components. There are mainly the four classes of the connective tissues is there. The first one is the connective tissue proper. The connective tissue proper is subcategorized mainly into the two. The first one is the loose connective tissue and the second is dense connective tissue. The loose connective tissue is further categorized into three: areolar loose connective tissue, the second is adipose loose connective tissue, and the third is reticular loose connective tissue. Whereas the second subclass of connective tissue proper is the dense connective tissue. This dense connective tissue is further categorized into three. The first is regular dense connective tissue, the second is irregular dense connective tissue, and the third is the elastic dense connective tissue. This connective tissue proper having the component as a cell is the fibroblast, fibrocytes, defense cells and the fat cells, and it is composed of the matrix, that is gel-like ground substance, all three fiber type, collagen and the reticular elastin. The general feature of connective tissue proper is that is six different types vary in density and type of the fibers, and it functions as a binding tissue. It resists mechanical stress, particularly tension. Then the second type of the connective tissue is the cartilage. The cartilage is further subcategorized into the three categories. They are the hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, and fibrocartilage. These cartilages are having the different kinds of the cells as a main structural components. They are the chondroblasts found in the growing cartilage and chondrocytes. Then, as a major component, these cartilage having the matrix, and the matrix is the gel-like ground substance with the fibers, collagen, elastic, and some other. The general feature of cartilage, it resists compression because of the large amount of water held in the matrix, and it functions to cushion and support the body structure. Then the third type of connective tissue is the bone tissue. This bone tissue is further subclassified into the two categories, that is the compact bone and spongy bone. This bone tissue having the two types of the cell as a component, they are the osteoblast and osteocytes. Also, in addition to this, as a component, the matrix is gel-like ground substance calcified with organic salts with the fibers like collagen. And if you talk about the general features of bone tissue, they are hard tissues that resist both compression and tension. And the main function of bone tissue is the support. Then the fourth class of connective tissue is the blood, that we already discussed. It is the largest fluid connective tissue of the body. Blood cell formation and differentiation are quite complex, and this blood connective tissue is composed of the three type of the cells. They are the erythrocytes, they are the red blood cells, and the leukocytes, white blood cells, with the platelets. Then the matrix is the plasma without any fibers. And if we will discuss the general feature of the blood, it is a fluid tissue and it functions to carry the oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, wastes, and other substances like hormones and the other nutritive materials. Then, after the detailed discussion about the different types of connective tissue, herewith I am giving you a simple tabular description of the same, with the help of which you can easily get more knowledge of connective tissue with respect to their description, location, and the function served by them. For example, the areolar connective tissue. It is composed of gel-like matrix with fibroblasts, collagen, and elastic fibers. And it is located at just beneath the epithelial tissue. That is the serous membrane around organs and lining cavities. The areolar connective tissue plays an important role in the cushion network and in the diffusion process and the inflammation. Now, let us discuss the connective tissues one by one with the help of respective their photomicrograph. The first one is the embryonic connective tissue, that is the mesenchyme. It is a embryonic connective tissue with gel-like ground substance containing fibers and star-shaped mesenchymal cell. We can easily see these mesenchymal cells with the help of this photomicrograph. In this photomicrograph, the mesenchyme, which is an embryonic connective tissue, is having a mesenchymal cell. With this, the matrix is composed of the fluid ground substance. It is clearly appearing background in this picture, and fine spare fibers. Also, this connective tissue gives rise to all other tissue types of the connective tissue. Then it is located primarily in the embryo. Then the second connective tissue proper is the loose connective tissue, that is the areolar tissue. The areolar tissue is composed of gel-like matrix with all three fiber types and the cells: fibroblasts, macrophages, mast cells, and some white blood cells. This areolar connective tissue is a soft packaging tissue of the body. The main function of areolar connective tissue is to wrap and cushion the organs. Its macrophages phagocytize the bacteria and plays important role in the inflammation, and holds and conveys the tissue fluids. The areolar connective tissue widely distributed under epithelia of body. It forms lamina propria of the mucous membrane, which packages the organs, surrounds the capillaries. Then the third loose connective tissue proper is the adipose tissue. This adipose tissue is composed of the matrix as in the areolar connective tissue, but it very sparse, that is closely packed adipocytes or fat cells, have nucleus pushed to the side by large fat droplets. Here in this photomicrograph, we can see the position of the nucleus in these fat cells, and the function subserved by this adipose tissue is to provide the reserve food fuel. It insulates against heat loss and supports and protects the organ. The location of this adipose tissue is under the skin in the hypodermis, around the kidneys, eyeballs, and within the abdomen, also in the breasts. Here you can see the photomicrograph of adipose tissue from the subcutaneous layer under the skin. Then the fourth connective tissue is the reticular loose connective tissue proper. It is having the network of reticular fibers in a typical loose ground substance with the reticular cells lies on the network. Mainly the fibers form a soft internal skeleton that is called as the stroma, which supports other cell types including white blood cells, mast cell and the macrophages. This is located mainly at the lymphoid organs like lymph nodes, bone marrow and the spleen. Here in this photomicrograph we can see the dark staining network of reticular connective tissue fibers forming the internal skeleton of the spleen. Then the fifth type of connective tissue is dense irregular connective tissue proper. This dense irregular connective tissue proper is mainly composed of primarily irregular arranged collagen fibers and some elastin fibers with major cell type is the fibroblasts. And defense cells and fat cells are also present. This dense irregular connective tissue is able to withstand tension exerted in many directions. It provides structural strength. This dense irregular connective tissue is located at fibrous capsule of organs and of joints. Also, they are present at the dermis of the skin and the submucosa of digestive tract. Here in this photomicrograph, you can see the dense irregular connective tissue from the dermis of the skin. Then the sixth type of connective tissue is the dense regular connective tissue proper. It is composed of primarily parallel collagen fibers with a few elastic fibers and major cell type is the fibroblast. This dense regular connective tissue proper attaches the muscle to bone or to muscles. It attaches bone to bone and withstands great tensile strength when pulling force is applied is on the direction. Then it is located at the tendon most ligament appendages. Here you can see the photomicrograph of the dense regular connective tissue from a tendon. Then the seventh type of connective tissue is elastic dense connective tissue proper. This elastic connective tissue is composed of dense regular connective tissue containing a high proportion of elastic fibers. This elastic connective tissue allows a recoil of tissue following stretching and maintains pulsatile flow of blood through the arteries. Also, it aids passive recoil of lungs following the inspiration. It is mainly located at the walls of large arteries within certain ligaments associated with the vertebral column and within the wall of the bronchial tubes. Here you can see the photomicrograph of elastic connective tissue in the wall of the aorta. Then the eighth type of connective tissue is hyaline cartilage. This hyaline cartilage is composed of amorphous but firm matrix, and collagen fibers form an imperceptible network, and chondroblasts produce the matrix, and when the chondrocytes mature, they lies in lacunae. This hyaline cartilage supports and reinforces, also serves as resilient cushion. It resists compressive stress. Then it is located at most of the embryonic skeleton. It covers the end of long bones in joint cavities and forms the costal cartilage of the ribs. The cartilage of the nose and the trachea and the larynx is also the important location of the hyaline cartilage. Here you can see the photomicrograph of hyaline cartilage from the costal cartilage of a rib. Then the ninth type of connective tissue is the elastic cartilage. The elastic cartilage is similar to that of the hyaline cartilage, but more elastic fibers is there in the matrix. Mainly, it maintains the shape of a structure while allowing great flexibility, is the major function of the elastic cartilage. Then it is mainly located at the external ear, that is the pinna and the epiglottis, where it supports the great flexibility. Here in this photomicrograph, you can see the elastic cartilage from the human ear pinna forms the flexible skeleton of the ear. Then the 10th type of connective tissue is fibrocartilage. The fibrocartilage mainly composed of matrix similar to but less firm than that in the hyaline cartilage. The thick collagen fibers predominates in this fibrocartilage. It provides tensile strength with the ability to absorb compressive shock. It is mainly located at invertebral disc, pubic symphysis, disc of knee joint. Here in this photomicrograph, you can see the fibrocartilage from an invertebral disc. Then the 11th type of the connective tissue is the bone. That is also called as the osseous tissue. It is composed of hard calcified matrix containing many collagen fibers. Also, osteocytes lies in the lacunae. It very well vacuolized. It supports and protects by enclosing. Also, it provides levers for the muscles to act on, and it stores calcium and other minerals and fat. Whereas bone marrow inside the bone is the site for blood cell formation. The process is called as hematopoiesis. It is mainly located at the bone. Here you can see the photomicrograph of the cross-section view of the bone. Then the 12th type of connective tissue is the blood. As we know, the blood is the largest fluid connective tissue of the human body. It is mainly composed of red blood cells and the white blood cells in a fluid matrix called as the plasma. This fluid connective tissue blood mainly facilitates the transport of respiratory gases, nutrients, wastes, and other substances. It is mainly located within the blood vessels. Here in this photomicrograph, you can see the smear of human blood. It shows two white blood cells, that is lymphocytes and neutrophil, surrounded by the red blood cells. So, at the nutshell, here with the help of this diagram, you can easily identify epithelial and connective tissues. And also, you can get the answers of following three questions mentioned related with that of the epithelial tissue and the two questions related with that of the connective tissue. So, in case of the epithelial tissue, the first question arises: how are the cells distributed in epithelial tissue? Then the second question: how are the cell nuclei arranged? And the third question: what shape are the cell at the apical region? Whereas, on another hand, in case of the connective tissue, the question arises: how are the cells distributed in connective tissue? And where are the cells located within the matrix? So, with the help of this diagram, you can easily identify the epithelial and connective tissue, which we already discussed. So, that's all for the day. We will continue the same chapter, tissue, in fifth part. Till then, revise the topic from the book. Have a nice day and thank you.